veteran, NFL veteran, and has done some amazing things post his career. So we're going to dive into that today.
Welcome to the Grit.org podcast. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
All right, my name is Brian Harbin. Welcome to today's episode of the Grit.org podcast. We have Donovin Darius here in the house with us today. Donovan, welcome.
Man, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have Donovan. So veteran, NFL veteran, and has done some amazing things post his career. So we're going to dive into that today. First, wanted to jump into our sponsor for today is escrow.com, the world's most secure payment method for online transactions. So whether you're it's $100 or $100 million. Escrow.com makes buying and selling online safe, secure, and trusted. So you can rest assured your transaction for a motor vehicle, electronic equipment, business, domain name, or anything significant to you is protected. Go to escrow.com today to learn more about how you can transact with confidence. So Donovan, so usually just love kind of jumping right in. I know you grew up in Camden, New Jersey, and I'm always curious, like any people, founding principles, stories, anything early on that you felt shaped kind of who you are today?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, when I get a chance to share my story and I talk about Camden, New Jersey, I like talking about it because people usually only know me for where I became and what I grew into, but not understanding that the groundwork that Camden provided. Like growing up, for me, Camden, New Jersey at that time was considered the most third dangerous city to live in. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in less than, we didn't have a lot of stuff. My mom, bless her heart, she had 5 kids by the age of 22. And I had a father who was in the military, came back, with some issues and whatnot, but I love him anyway. And what we had or what we didn't have, I think really drew us closer together. There's many times I tell people I would always come home and just try to flick the light switch to see if we had electricity. I would open the refrigerator at times and there really wasn't anything, especially in the middle to end of the month, because of, all the kids and how much the food and, it's waiting for, that monthly check and, just assistance. And so by not having a lot, what's most amazing is that sometimes you didn't really know how poor you was, because a lot of people around you was going through the same thing. But what I think my mom did, to us and for us, is she surrounded us with the right people. She believed in us. She took us to church. She gave us opportunities for sports and just put us around people to help guide us and to keep us busy, to keep us occupied. And so I think starting at that point, they say diamonds are made under pressure and all that stuff. We started under a lot of pressure, societal pressure, financial stress, all that stuff. But I think that fueled the fire for me for when the opportunity became a reality for me to really turn things around. I tell a story. I'll tell 2 stories really quick. One, I didn't start playing football until I was in high school. And that's because it was free. Because at age 9, I remember going out for the Centerville Simbas in Camden, New Jersey, which was a youth football team. And when I went out there for them, we did all the drills and everything, and I did very well. But then after the practice, they said, go see the person in the tent so you guys can get signed up. Well, we walked over to the tent and talked to the lady that was there, and then she told my mom, she's like, okay, that'd be $35. And at that moment, as a child, I'm thinking, okay, Mom, pull out the pocketbook, pull $35. But we didn't have $35. So we basically had to walk away. And as we're walking away, we're holding hands. My mom's really quiet. We get in the car, we're driving down the street, and I look in the rearview mirror and I can see my mom kind of crying. And for any parent that understands or knows, they can understand why my mom was crying. She was crying because she couldn't provide for her son. She couldn't do something that was really fulfilling, that was going to make her son happy, that was going to give him a next level opportunity. And so I remember that moment. And so I remember I don't remember how long after that, but we went to church. As I said, she used to take us to church. And then the message was going on all week. Throughout the whole service. And then at the end of the service, the pastor was talking. He was talking about something about if you want to change your life, if you want to do this and the other, then you can pray and ask God to do it and lead you and help you, and He will. And I just remember at the end of the service, I went over to the pastor and I just asked him to pray for me, because I said, when I get older, I want to be able to help my mom and I want to help my family. And so that's what I did. I went over to my pastor. I told him that. And then what I thought was going to be a single prayer just for me, he stopped everybody in the church and said, Donovan wants to pray for him. And they prayed for me. And I'll never forget, it seemed like it was a transition in my life in the moment, even at a young age. Because after that moment, things started lining up as I kept going. And then the doors began to open for me to not only run track, as a young kid, but then also when football came along, and then things just started adding. And so, growing, as I said, to wrap it up, Camden really helped develop the hunger in me and the humility within me to just, do whatever I can and to reach out and have faith, walk with faith, build the right connections and friendships, and just keep working hard, and then great things happen.
Wow. I mean, what an incredibly impactful moment, not just, to see that with your mom and how much you saw that hurt her, but also how that connected the religious piece for you, the spiritual piece. And so, leading up to high school, what was that outlet for you? How did you, still stay athletic and out of trouble, really, to be able to stay on that path, to be able to play high school football?
Well, again, like a lot of it was, I used to think I was going to go to the Olympics for track, because we ran all the time. I mean, on my street, we would draw lines, through our whole street. We lived on a one-way street on Division Street, and I would draw lines, and we would race. Before school, we would race gym class. I mean, you name it. And then I ran for Camden City Track Club. I ran cross country. I ran indoor track. I ran outdoor track. So we were always in sports, and that just gave us something to do. There wasn't really go to school and then just come home and just kind of whatever. It was go to school and then go to practice. Come home, do your homework, whatever you got to do, get ready for bed, do it all over again. And so I think for me, that's what it was. It was being preoccupied with a sport, with an activity. And then on the days that my mom would take us to church, 2 or 3 times a week, there was always something to do. So we didn't have a lot of freelance time to almost get in trouble,
right,
or do a whole lot of other stuff. And so as I grew older, each year, I never knew that I would make it in the NFL. I just knew that if I just keep going and keep trying, hopefully I'm better tomorrow than I am today, because I kept going. Yeah. And that was really my mentality. I tell people all the time, yes, I'm fortunate that I played 10 years in the league, but I didn't really think that would be me. Like, I was never that guy that said, I'm just that dude. I didn't know, because nobody in my family ever did it. I didn't have anybody I can look at and say, this is the roadmap. Mm-hmm. So all I did was just kind of walk in faith, and then just try to do everything I can to be better today than I was yesterday. And that was it. And then the opportunities, presented themselves. And even when the opportunity presented itself, I'm still telling you today, I'm still like, wow. Like, I sometimes look at myself, scratch myself, like, that's you. Like, you did that. And that's because I always had, I think, a healthy level of self-doubt, meaning I did not get so full of myself that I felt like I had fulfilled myself. I felt like there was always things that I could improve. And if I was willing to put the effort in, get the information, and work it out, then it would provide a greater opportunity than what I had.
Yeah, that growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's great too, because running is free, push-ups are free, sit-ups are free, and so when you did start playing high school football, was it just automatic game on? You were kind of a star right off the bat, or?
No. So freshman school, I played at Highland High School, and I think I was probably the third best player on the team, and that's because other guys had played football already. They played Pop Warner, but I was fast, and I would run around. I don't know how great my technique was, but I wanted to play in freshman, so that was okay, But then I was 5'5", 135 pounds. But then the next year I grew 5 inches. I was 5'10", maybe 155 pounds, and so I was able that year to play not only varsity on Friday nights or Saturday, but then come back and play JV on Monday. So on Fridays, I was substituting in the game on special teams and as safety and receiver, and then on Monday I was a starting running back. You know what I mean? And so I got a chance to really play a lot of football and really get better and play against different competition. And that really helped me because it helped my learning curve a lot faster because I got a chance to do, a lot of stuff earlier. But then come my junior in high school, we moved back to Camden, New Jersey, where I grew up. So I grew up in Camden, New Jersey for 7 years. And then at the end of my 7th grade year, we moved to Blackwood, New Jersey because we had, some family situation. But I moved back my 11th and 12th grade year. Well, my 11th grade year, my first game out of the box, we were playing against Overbrook High School. Quarterback threw a ball. I was playing a corner. I picked it off on the goal line and took it back 100 yards.
Oh my gosh!
And so for me, that was like, hey, welcome to Woodrow Wilson. welcome to high school football at its best. And so I was able to play wide receiver and DB there. Had a great time. With that, scored a lot of touchdowns, caught a lot of passes, made a lot of plays. And because teams was coming to look at some of the seniors, when they looked at some of the seniors, they was like, yo, who's this number 20 kid? Mm. And so I kind of stood out to them, and that's when they started giving me letters and stuff like that. And then the rest was history. Come senior year, I'm the starter. I've been there, wide receiver, DB, never got off the field, making tackles, making interceptions, making catches, making touchdowns, all that stuff. And it just grew, and the platform was there. So it was, as I said, it was amazing going through that because football was never the thing that I thought was going to take me or give me the opportunity for the next level. Mm. But when it did, and I first started getting those college letters, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, think about it. Most people in the inner city, the mail's coming, it's bills. But now we got mail coming, and it's letters saying, we want your son to come to this university, and we're going to pay for everything. Mm. I had an older brother and older sister, and I'm the middle child. And my older brother and sister, they both went to local colleges. So I was the first one that was going to have the opportunity and the blessing to go away. And so that was brand new. No, never treaded territory before, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And again, and I thank God for it because everything that happened, I think, was on purpose.
That's incredible. You were able to flip the script on it, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us about that. Obviously you chose Syracuse, but what were some schools you looked at, and how did you decide on Syracuse?
Yeah, so my five top schools was North Carolina State, Wisconsin, Syracuse, Ohio State, and UCLA. And so I went to, one of the things I did during my senior years, one of my coaches, my defensive back coach, I used to take 2 buses to school because I lived across town, and then my coach would drive me home every single day. And so he became like my uncle, like my bigger brother. And so what I did is I allowed schools during that last year to call him. When they can call you, actually, they can call him. He can vet it out. He can keep me, less of not being as distracted with, what's going on about the next level, but keep me focused. And so when it came down time for me to decide the schools, he was a big part of it. His name, Michael McBride. He was a big part of it that helped me narrow down the schools, meaning, okay, what school fit me cultural-wise? What school fit me football-wise? What school fit me geographical-wise? And so North Carolina State was a school, huge. For me, it was like one of my number one schools because a lot of kids from my area went there, and that mattered. Are you coming? Can people that look like me, sound like me, experiences I've experienced, can they have success where at your school? And North Carolina State was one of them. And then it also helped the fact that the recruiting coach, was a defense coordinator and a defensive back coach. So that means that I'm going to be spending all this time with the person that basically sold me everything to bring me there. So North Carolina State was one. When I went to Ohio State, Ohio State was so big, man. It was like 50-some thousand people. And I had something that happened on that trip when I was there. My mom called up that Friday night when I got there around 8 o'clock and talked to the coach that recruited me and said, hey, where's Donovan? And he said the worst 3 words you could say to a parent, I don't know. So she said, you know what, Coach Hudson, enjoy your time with Donovan. He'll never be back again. And this is on the first night of a recruiting visit. Mm. And so I didn't go to Ohio State because I thought it was way too big. Wisconsin, culturally, it was cold and it was outside. And culturally, it was a little different because, again, it was just, culturally there wasn't, I wanted something more that I was a little bit used to. Mm-hmm. But then Syracuse, at the end of the day, Syracuse was something that geographically, 3.5 hours, 4 hours away. They were in the Big East. I didn't feel like they was like a big school like Ohio State, Wisconsin, or Michigan and Texas. So I was able to find my way in there a little bit and potentially get a chance to play after a few years of development. And so with my team, with my family, with my coaches, we all decided that we thought that Syracuse with its its background, the people that's played there, and then my opportunity to play after like 3 years possibly. I thought that was probably going to be the best bet, and so at the end of the day, I think we made the right decision. I actually verbally committed to North Carolina State, but then I was like, you know what, Syracuse I thought was going to be the right choice.
So tell me about that transition to Syracuse. I mean, what was college life like, and then playing football there too?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to think about it when you're just used to being at home and you got your mom the whole time and the family and limited resources or whatever, and you go to somewhere now and everything is handed there for you. Everything is given for you. You don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. From equipment wise, everything is there. I mean, that was a culture shock. I mean, it was great. And then academically, I'm sure every student does this, that goes on scholarship or goes to college. I got to do it all on my own. Mm-hmm. There's nobody now to make me necessarily do it. But now I got to do it because it's the right thing to do. If not, there can be really drastic consequences, playing time, opportunity, scholarship, all that stuff. So it was like kind of like all eyes wide open, getting a chance to learn and know people from all around, all around the world, to get a chance to play in front of 50-something thousand people in a dome and it sounded like 100,000 people in there, to travel across the country, playing games. Now they're on television and stuff like that. So like that was huge, the exposure that I wasn't used to, but now all of a sudden, you have it. It was definitely mind-blowing.
So was there a practice, a play, anything, in your time there that kind of helped you get noticed and kind of make your name for yourself at Syracuse, you think, in terms of
most
the team?
Definitely. So right now, there's a drill that people use. They used to do in college football when it comes time to start hitting, and it's called the Oklahoma drill.
Oh, yeah, where somebody's laying down?
Yeah. So the Oklahoma drill, you got two guys here face-to-face, two blockers, they're going to block. Coach say go, they block. One of them block, or one of them get off the block. Then you got two people about 5 yards behind. One is a running back, or and another one is a defensive back or whatever. Snap the ball, they block. Now you got to go to that tackle. It's a head-on tackle, full front tackle. Well, I remember my third year, I was about to be a starter now. This is during spring practice. And I remember we did that Oklahoma drill, and going into that year, because of the magnitude, and I knew that, wait a minute, I'm going to be the possible starter this year. And I had that healthy self-doubt. I remember turning to my faith and just basically going to church the day before and was like, God, I got this fear in me. Like, I don't know exactly what it's like to really run full speed into people. And I got this pressure of this year and the team and everything. And I'm supposed to be the guy. And I don't know if I'm good enough for this or any other. So, on that Sunday before we did the spring practice in Oklahoma drill, I remember just, going to the altar again and just praying and just saying, because he said, if you have any fears, give it up to God. And I did that. At that moment, I didn't hear anything. I ain't feel nothing. But the next day when we went up there and we went out there and we lined up, during that drill, I realized that, what? God did everything that he needed to do to give me the opportunity. Now it's my job to take it and just go. And so I remember they snapped the ball, and I came downhill on that running back, and I hit this dude so hard. You know what I mean? I hit him so hard that he laid on the ground, and he was knocked unconscious. And he does that thing, that fencing, where people hear And
I call it rigor mortis.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't funny. It's never funny about the result of it. But to me, the lesson was, the power of faith, that you have even in the midst of doubt and, insecurity and uncertainty. And then so right after that happened, they said, okay, move the drill. And we kept going over there. While they tended to him, they went over there. Then I come up again. Then another running back was like, man, let me go against him. I'm like, okay, you don't realize the power I'm walking in right now. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not just walking in my own strength. I'm like, I'm overcoming something that's beyond me. We went again, and I went against him. Bam! He went knocked unconscious. So it was like, whoa. So for this day, moving forward, they no longer do the Oklahoma drill at Syracuse. You know what I'm saying? Not just because people don't think it's safe, but because of those things. So when you ask about, is there any moments at Syracuse that really defined, yes, those Oklahoma drills. And I use that story and tell that story because I tell the story, like, listen, courage is not, you know what I'm saying, the absence of fear and doubt, you know what I mean? But a lot of times courage is the steps you take in the midst of it. And I had some healthy doubt. I had some healthy uncertainty. I had the pressure and the weight that I felt the world of Syracuse athletics to be a leader, you know what I'm saying, being a redshirt sophomore on my back. But just walking that thing out in faith, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do it. I can overcome. Like when you talk about some of the grit creed that you guys have, having that growth mindset, having that in those situations, despite the adverse situations, you can overcome anything. And that's what happened, and that revolutionized, my time there, because that year, when I watched film, like I thought I was ready to almost go pro after that year because of the plays I was making and the impact and the intensity and all that stuff. And so, but that was my defining moment at SU.
That's quite the defining moment, and I wanted to read this off too because you had all-time record for tackles at Syracuse, 379, all East Conference player for 2 years. So obviously you're, positioned to go pro. So tell us about, what that was like. I don't know if you went to the combine or what it was like getting ready for the draft and paint us that whole picture.
Well, I did. So I would say after my, I felt like I had a great coming out third year, my first year starting. So I was a redshirt sophomore. And then my redshirt junior year, which was basically my third year really, really playing, I felt like I had an okay season. It was good, but it was okay. My timing was off, so I was thinking about coming out. And I was thinking about coming out, because a couple reasons. Number one, I'm not sure if you know the story of I had brought my brothers to live up there in college with me because they got into, there was some dangerous situation back in my high school where we grew up in Camden. And my mom called me and basically said, Donovan, told me what happened, and I just told her before we got the phone, I said, Mom, put them on the bus and send them to me. And she did. And gratefully, they got on the bus. That was on a Tuesday. Thursday, on the bus, they were living with me now in Syracuse. So now my brother's got a chance to live with me there. And this, like I said, this is basically my fourth year, my third year eligibility. I'm not playing the greatest like I did the year before, but this is my first opportunity now to go pro. And so at the end of that year, I had a decision to make. Do I try to go pro, even though I know I have one more year left? And do I try to go pro because this is my first opportunity to make money to try to take care of my family? So, what I did is I reached out to some NFL teams and said, hey, I'm thinking about coming out. What do you guys think? And I had a couple teams reach back to me and say, we think you're a pretty good player, but we don't think one more year won't hurt you, And so I decided to come back and play, one more year instead of trying to come out early and just jump into the draft. And so I think the reward for that decision was I wound up having the greatest senior years that I can ever imagine. I was, grateful. I was an All-American, consensus All-American, Big East Defensive Player of the Year, like number 2 in the country in interceptions. I mean, you name it. Everything was just lining itself up. We started out 1-3, finished 8 games straight with wins, played the Fiesta Bowl. So all those things started to come out. Now I'm basically having an opportunity at the end of the year to say, okay, my season went well, but I don't know what this next step is like. I don't know what it's like for the combines. I don't know. I know I was good for Syracuse, but I don't know how I'm comparing against all these other people. So I went to the Senior Bowl. They invited me to the Senior Bowl that year after my senior year, and I went there and I got Defensive Player of the Game. I had 2 interceptions and all these tackles and whatever. And so I'm like, oh, okay, wow. And then I go to the combines, and at the combines, instead of me, I told him I wasn't going to run and I wasn't going to lift. I said, you can do that. I'm going to do that when you come to my pro day 2 weeks later. So I did that. I had good interviews with teams. I did the drills, I believe, very well, well enough for people to say, oh, okay, this guy is doing all right. So then when it came to my pro day and I ran a 4.42 and 4.44, Then people are like, oh, wow. We knew Donovan was, big. He's a hitter, but he got speed.
Yeah.
And people don't realize hundredths of a second is the difference between first round, second round, or not even get drafted at all. And so I wind up getting a chance to have a good pro day, have good combines, good bowl experiences, and kind of finish everything to put myself in the right position to get drafted.
Yeah. So what was that like for draft day for you? I'm sure it's just pins and needles. I mean, did you have no clue?
No. Well, see, the only clues I had was they said that there could be a need for safeties in by other teams, and that's all the draft is anyway. It's about need. Later on, it could be about wants, but it's just really about need early on. And so there were some teams that had needs for teams. I think Patriots kind of had a cornerback need type. The Giants, Jacksonville, Houston, San Francisco. So there was a lot of different people, teams that had needs for safety. So I actually had no idea. So I remember on draft day, and I tell the story often, on draft day I was sitting out in my car because it was so stressful. And you just imagine everybody just looking at you for a 4-hour draft show on day one. Everybody's looking at you like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I don't know. Your phone ring, and if somebody else's phone ring, you're like, man, and it's not your ring, man, shut that phone off, because everybody's just waiting for that moment. But I was sitting out there in the car because I just didn't want to be. I was just under stress about what's going to happen and trying to ease that. And so I was sitting there listening to music and eyes closed. And one of my brothers that lived with me in Camden, that lived with me when I went to school, he came and knocked on the window. I was like, Donovan, Jack's on the phone. And I was like, what? He said, Jack's on the phone. So I got out the car, I ran upstairs, up into my mom's second story apartment, and it was full of people. And man, when I got to the top of the steps and I shared the story, man, it was like a picture from the Red Sea. It parted, and my mom on the other side, holding up the phone, and I'm just trying to get to her to get to this phone. And I can remembering that the closer I got to her, the more I started to think like, wow, this is it. All that stuff we went through is paying off now. All the doubt, all the insecurity, all the times we didn't have, here's a reward for it now. So when I got the phone, I got on it. It was Coach Coughlin. He was like, Donovan, we're thinking about drafting the 25th pick. How would you like to be a Jaguar? I was like, yes, sir. You better believe it. And so he said, watch the TV. So I watched the TV, and then Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner, walked across the stage, and everybody's in the house quiet and watching. And he said, with the 25th pick, the Jaguars select Donovin Darius out of Syracuse. Man, everybody in the house erupted in tears and cheers and everything. And at the end of the day, all that was basically, I heard something in the back of my mind, and it was like, you know what? It was for this purpose. Meaning everything you went through, this was for it. This is why you went through all you went through, because I had this plan for you. And you may not understand it, but here it is. And so I got the call, watched that, man, and it was just amazing, because nobody in my family had ever done it. Nobody from my family ever did it afterwards, but it was just the beginning of an opportunity, and I really felt blessed. I felt gifted. I felt anointed. I felt called, and I also felt unsure as well, because I had no idea, but it was all worth it.
Wow, another incredibly impactful story. And so reflecting back, so obviously spent eight seasons with the Jags. So what do you feel like you learned and developed about yourself over the course of those years? I mean, obviously going from college to NFL, this is a career now. What were some things that you had to learn and develop and hone as a person and a player at that point? Well,
definitely. I mean, first of all, as a player, you had to. I tell athletes when I coach them, and be hungry, healthy, and and humble. You want to stay hungry. Like you want to stay hungry. That means you want to keep getting better. So you want to keep getting better. I mean, you want to keep working hard. So I saw myself, no matter what I did on the field in one day, in one game, or 1 year, I saw myself still staying hungry, trying to get better. Trying to be better than I was the day before, trying to get better than I was the year before, and so that hunger, was there to try to be the best. There's only things I can control. I couldn't control where I was in Jacksonville in a small market, but what I can control is trying to be the best person on this Jaguar team against whoever it is that we go against. Being humble basically meant I didn't know it all. So that means that I got to learn. I got to be coachable. I got to listen to the coaches that are there. I got to I have to look at other people and listen to other people and seek out other people for information that I didn't have. How do I become better? How do I talk to Cardinal Lake, who's a Pro Bowl, several Pro Bowl player who moved to Jacksonville and played with us, but was an All-Pro with Pittsburgh Steelers and Dwayne Washington and guys that were veterans. You know, me being humble. Hey, man, what do I need to do? How do I need to do this? You're asking questions, you know, and so having that throughout my life, I kind of saw that actually helped open up doors for me and opportunity for me to get better. And then being healthy, which is, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to take care of myself? You know, I was fortunate to be an exercise science graduate and coaching graduate, you know, and that helped me understand my body. But then also there was other people, the training staff, you know, other people that were, you know, in my life to help me understand how to be healthy, how to recover, how to take care of yourself, how to overcome injuries, because we all had that. I mean, I had injuries. I had ankle surgery. I had ACL surgery, meniscus surgery. I had, you know, shoulder surgery here, fractured hip. I mean, you name it, you know, you have it. And so I think through the perseverance of going through injuries, up seasons, down seasons, being hungry, healthy, and humble, I think really taught me, you know, a lot that, you know, we can overcome everything if we have the right information, the right resources, the right people, and we're willing to do the work.
So I got to ask, favorite play, favorite game in Jaguar history for you? That you played?
So I would just say my first favorite one was my rookie year. We're going against Pittsburgh Steelers up there at Three River Stadium. And again, I'm a rookie, and I got all these guys around me that's been playing for all these years. And we're up there, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know, they have a player on their team, you know, that ran the ball, you know, and carried people around. And he did it so much they gave him a nickname, the Bus.
Oh yeah.
And my buddy, you know, Jerome Bettis, he was that guy, and he earned the right because that's what he did. He was fast like a fast guy, you know, like a small guy, and he was big like a big guy. And so I remember that first half we played them in Three River Stadium. This guy was just all over the place, running the ball, stiff arming people, everything. And I remember going to halftime and we're down and hearing guys complain in the locker room, this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the back of my head, I heard something say, you know what, person got to make a change. It's you. So I remember looking in the mirror, going to the mirror, and just basically saying, all right, Donovan, we got to do this. And it starts with us. We go out second half. They kick the ball first play of the second half. We're lining up, and I'm saying to myself, I got to make this. I got to set the tone. I got to do something to change it. Well, I did, because they hand the ball off. Cordell Stewart hand the ball off, and I came downhill on him, and all I was thinking about was I need to set the tone. And I came down, hit him as hard as I could. You know what I'm saying? He kind of took a step back, went to the sideline. You know what I'm saying? The hit wasn't as gruesome, you know, for him, but it was to what everybody saw, how I stopped the bus in the hole. And what that did is I got up and I was just excited. And I was like, yeah, you know, and I was excited because I had to overcome that as well. I had to try to set the tone for my team. I had to basically try to turn the tide. You know, and sometimes we go through things in life, we don't think that we're the person that's going to change it. But you are. One decision, one action, and we kind of go from there. You know, again, going back to the grit creed, you know, about making things happen and, you know, you doing it yourself. You know, and that happened. So I'll never forget, after that game, we developed a healthy respect for each other. And that's because he knew that I was always going to be coming, and I knew that he was always going to be bringing it, you know. And so there was an admiration and respect for him to know that he raised my game because of his ability and his tenacity. And I always had to be prepared, you know what I'm saying, for that. So for me, those memorable moments of me hitting him, me hitting Jerome Bettis, the bus. Eddie George was another guy. You know, those are things that really stood out because those were the mountains, I would say, of our division, of our conference, and those are the mountains that I had to climb.
Well, and I love the fact too that you took ownership of that, of like your position and the guy that's beating them on their team, of like, hey, it's up to me to send a message, and you can do it by, you know, going after their top player, right? So, and
yeah, it's like you send out your best guy, we're gonna send out our best guy, and if your guy wins, then you beat all of us. If our guy wins, we beat all of them. And that's kind of what it is. Because I'm the last line of defense on one side, and he's the deepest guy in the backfield on the other side. If he gets by me, touchdown, you win. You know what I'm saying? If he can't get by me and, every single time, then we win. And so, and then, like I said, two gladiators just going at it.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Anything else that stood out as being a Jag as far as memorable moments, even off the field, in terms of conversations or impactful, things that came as a result of that?
Again, having the opportunity to be a part of the 1% of people that ever makes it in the NFL, that in and of itself is an anomaly. That in and of itself is a miracle. And so the fans that I got a chance to meet, and know personally were always amazing. The stadiums that I got a chance to play in, just to be called a Jaguar, just to be able to look back and say, wow, I did that. I was a part of that. I grew up watching the Philadelphia Eagles. I remember going to Westchester, Pennsylvania, watching them at training camp. Randall Cunningham, Keith Byers, Mike Quick, Eric Allen, all those guys. Never did I realize I would be able to be on that level. But you did talk about moments. So another moment I did have, being that I watched Randall Cunningham and all that stuff, and I grew up a kid watching him. He played Dallas one year, and we played against them at Dallas Stadium. And I remember backpedaling, and I was in a zone, and he looked one way, and then he threw back another way, and I got a chance to pick the ball off from him. And so for me, that was huge because, I grew up watching this dude. He was a legend. And the fact that now I got a chance to intercept the ball from him, was huge. But as an overall experience, I think just being in the league time and time again was a huge moment. But if I did have to pick a moment in time that really stood out, I think it was probably like some of my last 3 years playing in Jacksonville. And that's because I signed for a 5-year contract in the beginning when I first started. I played out my first year 5-year contract. Then I became a free agent. And instead of me becoming a free agent, the Jaguars, what they did is they put a franchise tag on me. And the franchise tag just basically means, for those who don't understand or don't know or not aware, is that they're saying who is the best player on your team that you cannot afford to just let go. So instead of you going out to free agency market and any other team bidding on you, a week before that date, they're going to put a tag on you and say that, you know what, we're going to take him off the market. If you really want him now you got to give us 2 first-round draft picks. Ain't nobody giving 2 first-round draft picks hardly to anybody. That only probably happened like once or twice ever in the history of the NFL. And so what they did is they franchise tagged me, which meant that I'm going to give you a contract for 1 year. We're going to guarantee you the top average 5 salaries in that position. So we're not going to allow you to make the most that you can. We're just going to give you amongst the top 5 the average. That salary is guaranteed. But if you get hurt or whatever, after the season's over, it's over. So what I did is I got a franchise tag, that first year after that 5-year contract. After that season was over, I just knew it. Oh, okay, I'm going on to free agency somewhere else. I don't know where I'll be playing. They franchise tagged me again. And then after the second year they franchise tagged me, I'm like, you know what, we definitely going to be somewhere. I don't know where we're going to be at. They franchise tagged me again. That was an NFL record for a defensive player. There's nobody ever in the history of the NFL been ever franchise tagged 3 years in a row, except Walter Jones, an offensive tackle, Hall of Famer from the Seattle Seahawks. But for me, that moment was so defining because if I didn't have a good season, and I actually got hurt one year, ACL and stuff, or if I didn't play well or the team didn't play well, I can go from being at the top of my marketability to just being one amongst the players. But I thank God for the grace to go out there. And it was almost as he was saying that, you know what, Donovan, you're looking for the team to give you security and stability, the long-term contract. I am your security. I am your stability. And all you do is you go out here and you do what you need to do. You work hard. You're not disgruntled. You're not complaining. You work hard. You lead your team. You focus. You give it all out. And then I'm going to reward you. Well, at the end of the day, those 3 years that they franchise tagged me equaled about the same average of the top guy in all the country, in all of, in all of the NFL. So instead of me getting it in one big lump chunk, looking at it, seeing, okay, there's a contract, I can put my hopes in that. 1 year at a time.
I took care of it.
Trust me, 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
1 year at a time. Then at the end of 3 years, there you go. You know what I'm saying? It averaged the same amount. So yeah, but I think that was a huge defining moment for me because, again, there was a lot of stress of what if, this, that, and the other. But I look back and say, you know what? God took care of me, and it all worked out.
Yeah, and I think for any players out there listening, I mean, to make that happen, it's like, a lot of guys can make tackles and have great games, but it's that X factor, and with so many things that you've already said throughout this conversation about the X factor of, being spiritually based, and that's being a big foundation for you. The fact that you've mentioned this several times, that you really seeked counsel when you needed it, and you had people in your corner that you could lean on, that trusted you, and the fact that when the team needed you, you put them on your back. And I think that's really, the loyalty that, if you put that out there for your team, that, it'll probably come back to you,
Yeah, so, and to that point, I mean, being a coach, and I coach now and stuff, I mean, there's several things that I thought about and that I try to adapt that still holds true in all different things. And I saw again in your grit creed as well. There was never anything that I asked you to do that I'm not willing to do myself. You know what I mean? And, that's one. Another one, leadership. It's not about the person in the front. As a leader, I want to be on the side of you. I want to be behind you. I want to be underneath you. You know what I mean? And there's times I will be in the front of you. But I want to be all surrounded around you so that you know that I never left you. I'm right there. Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you. The another thing that we share is, you know what? I want your actions to speak so loud, I don't have to hear a word you say. You know what I mean? Let your actions speak so loud. I was telling my high school kids yesterday, I said, you know what? Here's the thing. At the end of practice, I said, I hear you when we're not working, but I don't see you when we are working. And I said, here's what that means. When we're not working, y'all trying to rally everybody up, trying to correct everybody, trying to yell at people to do this and that. I hear you when we're not working. Mm-hmm. But when we are working, I don't see you. And I said, as coaches, we can see better than we can hear. So I need to see you because I can't hear. I can't hear you. I can see you. So don't tell me you want to work hard. Don't tell me you want to be the best. Show me you want to be the best. And I think having that mentality as a player, I want to lead from the front. I want to lead from the example. I may not always be in the front. Leading could be on the side. There's times I have to submit myself and allow another person. I shared it. I was fortunate to play with 17 different starting free safeties over my 10 years. 17 different guys I had to start with. So whenever I played with them, it wasn't about, hey, I'm double D. Watch what I do, listen to what I say. No. The mentality was, as like a servant leader, find out from, hey, man, how can I help you? What can I do to help you become better? How can we grow together? And by helping you, guess what? It helps me. And so I think having that type of mindset of serving you, helping you. Like, for example, I had several players, when I say that, didn't know how to tackle. They know how to tackle. They know how to run around. They were kind of like how I was early on before I really started to understand how to tackle and the technical component of body position and alignment, assignment, technique and finish and all that stuff. They would do that, but they didn't really know how to do it effectively, efficiently. And so I will work with them in practice, after practice, whatever, and so helping them helped us. Because if this guy makes a wide open field tackle and he wasn't as confident before, but now he is because we're working together and he's learning, he's watching film with me, we're watching, we're developing him and stuff like that, then guess what? That helps us, And so again, I think during my time, whether it's, playing or off the field, whatever, it was about, okay, how can I serve people?
And that's got to be one of the most rewarding things to see as well, is when a guy that you coached up makes a play in the game that you helped kind of coach him on. And I'm sure you're just feeling, so proud of, seeing that growth and development through them as well.
Yeah, it was one guy, a buddy of mine, Deke Cooper. He played for Notre Dame. He was a safety, 6'3", whatever. And he was that guy. He was a physical specimen, but to his own admission, there were certain plays that in certain, positions that he found himself in where he didn't feel as confident. But then as we continue to work and the techniques and fundamental, and you could see him make plays, and I remember talking to him about this. He was like, Dub, I just felt like I was unstoppable, man. And he said, I always knew I could do it, but I just never knew how to do it effectively. And to see, I'm telling you, to see the light go off in him like that, even at this level, people think that it's because you're at the top, You know what I'm saying? You're at the end of it. No, being at the top just means that's just the level of your status of right now. You can keep growing, and he kept growing. He learned it. He put in the work, and it's like a proud father, big older brother. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up, D.
Yeah.
Good job, bro. Good
yeah.
job.
I mean, even just 1% better makes
That's
a big difference.
That's
you know what I mean?
Next level, man. Next level.
And, obviously a phenomenal career with the Jags, all rookie team that first year, got a Sports Emmy Award winner. But so tell us about kind of that transition, how you knew to kind of hang up the cleats that final third, year, that franchise tag, and then how you kind of figured out what to do next.
Yeah. So, my career ended. I started going through some different stuff medically and, with my ankle, my calf, and, and all those things. And then it just, just the clarity of, I felt like the last couple of years it was time to retire, because I felt like there was something greater or something else that I was going to be doing. And so I transitioned, from there, was outside of Jacksonville because I went out there with the Raiders and just kind of stayed while the kids was in school. And it was a transition. And as I mentioned, as we were talking before, there isn't anywhere that anybody really needs your skill set that you worked on over the last 15, 20 years. Nobody needs to know. Nobody needs me for how hard I hit a running back. Nobody needs me for how good I can catch this ball.
No Oklahoma drills in the business world.
No, exactly. Imagine this. You know what I'm saying? You're right here at Johnson & Johnson. They're like, all right, for our lunchtime break, we're going to do Oklahoma drill. That's not happening. Nobody needs to, care about how well I can break down film of another opponent and what they do. And so the transition becomes, or the success of the transition becomes, how do I learn and understand my transferable skills? And now how do I appropriate that to whatever the next thing is? Well, there's a couple of things that can happen, that has to happen. Number one, you got to understand, who are you, your identity? What is your identity in? Because if what you do becomes who you are, when you stop doing what you do, you can lose who you are. And so you got to have an identity and understand that. Then you got to understand, okay, what am I passionate about? You know what I'm saying? Where's my compassion at? And compassion is two words, company and then passion, okay? So who can I join up with, okay, in an area that they're passionate about? What can I teach them? What can I help them? How can I support them? And so when I understand that, now I got to understand, okay, well, what am I doing to help them? What am I teaching? And so helping guys understand that, and I had to do this myself. And as one of the transition life coaches with the NFL, that's what I had to do. Help guys understand that identity. Help them understand, okay, what do you feel your purpose is? What do you feel passionate about? You know what I mean? And now let's develop a plan on how you're going to take those critical things that you have and who, you know what I'm saying, are you going to work with? And so that takes some time, helping a guy understand, because you got to remember, for all the years in college sports, all the years in high school sports for the most part, and then in the professional, somebody always created that for you. They always gave you the beginning, the middle, and the end. You just plugged yourself in. But now you got to create that infrastructure. You got to create what you do, why you do it, how you do it, when you do it, where you do it. And so that now you become the CEO of yourself. Where before you were just a participant, plug and play. You know what I mean? Now you got to develop that. And so it takes a transition. And for me, it took me going through the fact of, okay, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but let me walk out some of these steps. Let me get connected to some of the people that could help you. A good buddy of mine, Leonard Wheeler, who was actually another one of the life coaches and played in the league for several years from Minnesota. He was a guy who was a life coach at the time. And he was doing it for not only, individuals, but also corporate world. He got a chance to take me through some of those steps as well. And I got a chance to flesh out some of this stuff and then try to create a plan.
And for you, I know you've done a number of things, personally, in addition to helping with the transition group. So you've become a motivational speaker, wrote a book, Next Level Motivation. The book series is highly acclaimed. I mean, and then you mentioned the NFL Transitions Life Coach. So you got into motivation, public speaking. Like, why was that important to you?
Yeah, so along the process of me trying to evaluate who I am and what am I here to do, I realized, and I had to identify, okay, what are my gifts? We all have gifts that we've been given with. And the gift for me, I felt, was teaching and encouraging. So at the core, I was a teacher and I was an encourager. So if I look at my whole life, I'm always teaching something and I'm always encouraging people. So as I understood that, now the decision had to be made of who am I teaching and what am I teaching? You know, and so what I did is as I wrote down the things that I like to do and who and the what and the where, that's what I did. I said, okay, how do I want to impact little kids? You know what I'm saying? Like elementary school kids. And so I wrote it down. I'm gonna do talks at schools, and then I'm gonna do youth, then I'm gonna do camps, sports camps. So I get a chance to impact on them through this. How I'm gonna do middle school, I can do camps there, I can come in and talk there. How I'm gonna do high school, same thing, camps there, work with this organization with that, you know, whatever. How I'm gonna work with corporate world, motivational speaking, you know what I'm saying, corporate speaking, being a performance coach. You know, how am I gonna do the churches? Okay, go in and talk and share testimony, but then also teach, you know what I'm saying, the word, you know, and kind of share from there. And then how am I gonna help anybody? I can write books. You know what I mean? I can just make them so that people can get them. So to this date, I've written 3. So I read the Next Level Motivation. Another one I had was more a quote book, which is called Living All Pro, and it was basically it's a quote book for you to apply to your life. And the last one was called the ABCs of Next Level Relationships. It's a relationship book, guidebook. And so for me, it was understanding I'm a teacher and encourager. Now it was like, what am I going to teach you? And how I'm going to encourage you, put it together, and then present it. Because I think in life, we're here to expand and express. You know, we're more here to expand more of who we are. You know what I'm saying? The kingdom of God and you know what I'm saying, the infiniteness of Him and who we are, we're made in His image, is beyond our limited understanding. So if we're continuously expanding of the kingdom, if we're continuously growing and growing and growing and experiencing more of the love and more of the power and empowerment in connection with other people, it's amazing, you know what I mean? And we're here to express more of the love and kindness and patience. Do for you what you don't ask for me to do. Be kind to you, show peace to you, show love to you. And so living in that mindset that I'm here to love, show peace, show kindness, and keep growing, and let that be the forefront. And then it keep expanding. Then all of a sudden, that's what, you know, and I learned over the years, that's what it means for let the kingdom of God come here. You know what I'm saying? And let it continue to expand. It's not that, you know, it's not that something takes over here. It's just that, just like they said, the yeast, it's in there and it grows and it infiltrates. Well, what's infiltrating in our life? That love to other people, that kindness, that assistance, that counsel, whatever it is. And it's just growing. You know, I have a saying in life, man, it says, you know, I love people and I use money and not the other way around. And so that just basically means that, you know, when you love people so much and you use money as a tool,
that's good.
and you use money as a tool versus the other way around, versus I use people and I love money. No, let us love people and use the money for what? Experiences, blessings, help. You know what I mean? All this stuff. And so when you think about it that way, then you think about, oh, okay, everything I ever earned, everything I have, resources I have, all this is for a purpose. And what is that purpose? It's to glorify God and to help and love other people.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, for me, my mentality with money is like, it's numbers on a page, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's really what it is, you know? Just 3 more questions here. And I'm really curious because, you know, as a father of 4 kids, you know, I'm a father of 3 boys. And so, you know, what are some key things that you're trying to instill in your kids that are important for you to kind of bake into them?
Well, I think at the end of the day, respecting themselves and other people. When I think about the word respect, you know, spect means to look. Read means again. You ever grow up and, you know what I'm saying, you see a good looking girl, you know what I'm saying, you look at her, and then you look at her again. You know what I'm saying? You know, are you living a life and are you doing something that causes for someone to look at you again? It's like an amazement. I see you, but then when I see you again, wow, I'm amazed at what I see. You know what I mean? And so when you give that respect away for other people, like when you show them that respect, when you uphold them to that level, to see them again, not just how they are, but to see them through new, fresh eyes, to see them through the eyes of possibilities, and you do that same thing for yourself, then I think it allows you to grow to a level, you know what I'm saying, that you've never seen. You know, accountability, you know, being able to be accountable, not just counted up as a number, but to be counted on. You know, having that ability to be accountable and responsible. I always want my children to be responsible, which when I think about responsibilities, having the ability to respond. Okay? If you're responsible, you have the ability to respond. That means you have enough information, understanding, you know enough about yourself to respond to any situation. You know, and then at the end, I just tell people, you know what I'm saying, don't give up. You know what I'm saying, just give everything you have. You know, live full and die empty. You know, Miles Monroe was a great mentor of mine from afar through his books, his teaching, everything. And he always said, live full and die empty. You know what I mean? Pour out your life. Be full of wisdom, be full of knowledge, be full of understanding, experiences, and then die empty because you poured it all out. You know, and I think if we're able to do that, and we do that, it allows us to live a fulfilled life. Now, does that mean that we won't go through challenges? No. We all go through challenges every single day. But if we continue to keep walking forward one step at a time with optimism and faith and the right people around us, you know, we can overcome anything.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And love the advice for the kids too. It's funny because I tell my kids, it's like, how do people respond when they hear their name? Like, do you know Donovan? Oh, yeah, I know Donovan. Or do you know Donovan? Oh, I know Donovan, right?
Yeah,
There's a difference
right.
in how people are going to remember you based on how, you treat them. And the other question I want to ask is, so for our audience, like what can we do to follow you, find out more? What are you looking to do or promote? I know you mentioned you've got, you just did a sports football camp for spring break. What else do you have going on that we could check out?
A couple of things that I do that the public involves in is, you know, through social media, you know, whether it's on Instagram and stuff, I'll post videos on YouTube or Facebook Live or Instagram. So, you know, just Donovin Darius Empowers on Instagram, Donovin Darius on Facebook. But then also I have a nonprofit foundation that I have and I've had, and I host life camps for those foundations. And what it is basically it's a way to take part of the family and bring them together and develop them to help them go to the next level, you know what I'm saying, their life skills, maximize their purpose and their potential. And so I would do life camps, what I call, which is a 4-hour event where we bring family together, we motivate them, educate them, build them up, and then we bring organizations that provide family services, we bring them to those places so they can get connected. So I'll do one for fathers and children, mothers and children, girls only, boys only, and then the family as a whole. And I do that through my foundation, DonovanDariusFoundation.com. Well, DonovanDariusFoundation20.com is how they can look up what programs we're doing. Sometimes we used to, before COVID, we were doing about 5 to 7 a year. And then after COVID, you know, we had to do just kind of here, you know, pick and choose when we do it. As far as sports camps for youth kids, ages 7 to 13, Darious, nextleveltraining.com is where we do them. I put up a lot of videos of the camps that we did. So parents all over the country, kids all over the country can learn, can see what we do, how we do it, how we coach it, how we correct it. They can get a chance to understand that through DariusNextLevelTraining.com, whether it's an in-person camp or it's something that they want to do to learn and just kind of see some of the drills and whatnot. Yeah. And then the last one, like I said, I do get a chance to fortunately go into companies and speak on different things, everything from communication to, you know what I'm saying, maximizing purpose, leadership, teamwork, you name it. People just reach out to me, you know what I mean, just through Instagram, you know what I mean, or emails, dd20@DonovanDarius.com, and we get a chance to walk with them, find out what it is that they want for their employees and for their staff, and then create a custom-made plan for them and come in, deliver, and, you know, and partner with the new team.
We've got some incredible stories, and the life nuggets throughout this have been unbelievable. So, and the last question that we love to ask is, you know, the Grit Creed or 12 principles that we really try and bake in, you know, through the programs that we do. But which one stood out to you the most and why? Yeah,
it was 2 of them, and I think we talked about it during this podcast. One of them says, I can, I will, and I am going to, is a mantra in the face of adversity. I actually had one that was very similar. It was basically, I can, I will, I must, and I am. And basically saying I can, which is give you the ability that this is possible. You know what I'm saying? I will. We have, you know, we're in control of our will. Like, I'm going to make the decision to move forward, take that step. When I would say, like, I must, it put the severity of how important it is. You know, it's not something for tomorrow, it's something for today. And I am. At the end of the day, we are who we are. We are the I am, you know. And so when we defined ourselves as the end result, I am healed, I am an overcomer, I am strong, and that's predicated off the things we did before. And so that one stood out to me as far as the I can, I will, and I am going to. And the other one, the one that says I will never ask anyone to do something that I'm not willing to do. I think that's leadership, leadership 101. I want you to see me do what I'm asking you to do. And I'll be willing to go out there before you, to lay my life on the line so that way we can all benefit together.
Leading from the trenches, right?
There it is.
Well, thanks again, Donovan. This has been incredible. Appreciate you guys tuning in today's episode of the Grit.org podcast, and we'll check you guys out next time. Thanks.